A balanced individual understands the importance of budgeting. Up to now, most of my videos have been about leadership, management, and business. However, this channel should serve as a bridge that connects a lot of other principles. And in order to find true balance and a bridging mindset, it is important to understand and excel in these other departments. So this video is going to be about budgeting principles. Some people may have depleted savings accounts, maxed out credit cards, perhaps even a paycheck away from financial disaster. Or maybe you're doing great and you make more than 6 figures and everything is financially perfect, but you just kind of need to work on your budgeting a little bit and you're not too sure on what tools or principles or what to look for. And honestly, a lot of us have been there. We promise to start budgeting next month. Maybe it's New Year resolution goal that we're going to start to keeping track of our expenses and revenue. And a lot of times unexpected things happen in life, such as a car breaks down. And I've been in that scenario when I owned a Jeep and I had 35-inch tires and a 3-inch lift kit and my transmission was going bad, my engine, everything was going bad with the poor car. And I had a lot of unexpected expenses that were happening at that time that I had to plot now on my budget planner, or sometimes it would be so much that some people could think, well, why am I going to even bother? I already know I'm negative. But those types of mentalities are more of a reason why you should be budgeting. There can also be a few social pressures such as get-togethers, family events, birthdays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, events that affect you financially that you are kind of forced to go to. You don't necessarily have to, but if you have a relationship where you have a big family and you're kind of used to doing that, then it could be an unexpected expense or a pre-planned expense that you have to do that you may not necessarily want to. So with all these factors, managing your money in your personal life can seem like a bit of a challenge. And honestly, one of the biggest impacts is not necessarily creating the budget, but actually following through with it. And just like many things in life, consistency is key. And in this case, it's no different. Managing your money and budgeting will benefit greatly from consistently being implemented into your life. And honestly, budgeting is more than a mindset than it is math. I know some people may correlate budgeting with finance because it is a part of finance, but in reality, the Excel sheet does everything for you. All you have to do is physically put the numbers in and you're going to get already a breakdown of all your expenses. So it's not so much that it's a finance thing, it's a mindset thing. Do you want to take the time to actually put your numbers so you can see your bad spending habits or your good spending habits, or that awesome revenue that you have coming in, or that low revenue you have coming in that maybe pushes you to want to get a better career path? And honestly, it does put it into your face that you may have bad spending habits. So I'll give you guys an example. I love drinking coffee. I have a very expensive coffee machine, and that doesn't stop me every Saturday and Sunday from going on a little date with my wife to a local coffee shop to get coffee. And yes, is that an expense that I could break? Yeah, it is. That we don't have to go, but I choose to go. And I'm grateful enough to be in a scenario where I can go and it doesn't really impact me in any way, shape, or form. But if you were somebody who is living paycheck to paycheck and you're kind of there and you're thinking about it and you're like, oh, I'm just going to get the coffee. It's only 13 bucks. Think about it, compounding. That's going to be at least a good chunk of money if you're living paycheck to paycheck. Again, this is a very extreme scenario, but there's some people who are. There's actually people who are in this scenario. And maybe it's not coffee. Maybe it could be eating out or clothes or shoes or some sort of accessorial spending that didn't really have to be done. And that's the important part about budgeting, is that when you're doing it, a lot of these decisions start popping out. And you begin plotting your monthly expenses and you start seeing it, and it becomes a mental challenge like, oh my God, I need to get better track of this. Okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to make sure that I don't spend money in this area. I'm going to make sure that I improve my spending habits. So this is a challenge to say no to purchases that could be impulsive. It's a challenge to yourself to kind of sit back and say, okay, let me take a breather. Let me think about it for a day and then make the purchase if I really need it. It's about understanding that depending on your life scenario and where you are in life, budgeting can be an extremely critical tool for you to generate wealth. So let's go over 5 different steps to help you create better budgeting habits. Number 1 is to set a clear financial goal. Before you even start budgeting, you need to identify what you want to achieve. Is it saving for a house? Is it paying off debt? Is it saving for a wedding like I am? Or maybe an emergency fund? A clear goal gives your budget purpose and direction. The goal will also outline how aggressive you should be with your budgeting. Because if it's something more extreme, like I need an emergency fund, I have no money in my savings, then that severity of the situation is going to really put that goal on top of your list, right? Like you really need to focus on budgeting. You really need to focus on cutting back expenses and on increasing your revenue. But if the financial goal is maybe I want to take a trip to Hawaii randomly next year, so I need to start saving money, well, then you give yourself a lot more leeway. It's not as severe. You're not going to lose your house, your car if you don't make that payment or if you don't make that goal your priority. And depending on how severe it is more of a reason to stay consistent. Because if you are somebody who's in a really bad scenario, you need to keep consistent with your budgeting tools, with your expenses. You don't want to lose track of that because you don't know what month you're going to have an unexpected expense that's going to really eat your savings or put you over the top with your expenses where your revenue can't keep up. So outlining your goals puts this into perspective. And lastly, make sure you put it in a sticky note. I like to do this. If I have a financial goal, I like to put it on a sticky note and I put it everywhere I can. If it's on the fridge, it's in my office, it's here in the studio, it's wherever, on my phone, in my car. If it's that important, put it on a sticky note and remind yourself throughout the days, every day. The more you see it, the more you remind yourself, the more you're going to act on it. That means that if you really are in a situation where you're hurting for money and you put a reminder everywhere you look at, guess what? The moment that you try to make a purchase that maybe you don't need, you're going to think about that sticky note and you're going to say, oh, all right, I'm going to take a break from that. I'm not going to really do it this time. I'm not going to make the purchase right now. I'll wait. And those little steps, they compound. And at the end of the month, you're going to have at least, I'm not saying that that's going to drastically change your life and now all of a sudden you're going to make a lot of money, but they're little steps and they help you. And at least creating those habits now with these smaller issues is going to be very beneficial in the future if you do make more money because those habits, you keep them and you implement them in other areas of life. Number 2 is to track your income and expenses. So you can't manage what you don't measure. Start by listing all your sources of income and tracking every single expense. I have a budget planner on my website that I sell. However, right now, if you comment tracking, I will email it to you for free. So anybody watching this video, if you need a budget planner or you already have one, just put it on the comments and it's absolutely free. There's nothing else that goes from it. You're just going to get the budget planner. You can use it. You can move anything around. You can change stuff you want to change. It's absolutely yours and it's free. But ideally, you do want a budget planner that has graphs because you can visually see your income and your expenses month over month or even year over year if you keep track long enough. And that shows you what your habits actually look like. It'll show you how much money you spend on, I don't know, maybe groceries or eating out or your new car payments. It puts it into perspective and you can physically see year over year how you performed. Now, I know that does sound a little bit more of business lingo, but I personally believe that your financial life and your personal life should very well be treated like a business. You should be thinking about your W-2 salary, your side projects, your business as revenue that comes in, and your expenses in your personal life as actual expenses and the leftover money as profit, meaning take home. What did you actually take home, literally, at the end of the month? Thinking of it in this perspective really puts it into that idea where you have to stay professional in that aspect of your personal life. Now, I'm not saying to completely, eye hawk it and just never spend money and just focus on that and saving. I'm not trying to say that. But the point is that you do want to treat it professionally and you should care a lot about your financial life because you never know when you're going to be in a scenario where you need to have those principles already established. Number 3 is to categorize your spending. You want to make sure that you break down your expenses into categories such as housing, utilities, food, transportation, and entertainment, for example. This will help you see where your money is actually going and where you can cut back. The budget planner I provide already has this, and it also has subcategories. Subcategories are very important. So for example, let's say that you have housing expenses, right? Like the house here that I live in. The subcategory in housing could be lawn care, mortgage, maybe furniture you bought for the house. Some of the stuff I bought here in the studio will technically go under bridging mindset. But if it was something like a couch, then it would go under furniture. The point is that the subcategories will really help you identify once you start tracking at a deeper level exactly where your actual spending is going. Having it by category also shows you what category is overtaking another, right? So if you're looking at eating out versus groceries, if eating out is a lot higher than your grocery, then that's kind of bad because you want to make sure that you're eating more at your house and what you're cooking than eating out. If you're restricted in your spending, if you make a lot of money and it doesn't really matter, then that might not be important. It's still something to consider that the categories can be an eye opener for you. Number 4 is to review your income. So allocate your income into categories. If you only have a salary job and it's just you, then it's not going to be that difficult. But if your goal is to actually create wealth, then you're going to have to find other sources of income aside from your W-2. Now, if you are a business owner, so the scenario is really going to dictate here, but for example, let's say you have a W-2 job and you also have a side hustle, you want to break those down. You can also break it down by other sources that are not as common, maybe such as dividends or rental income that you're getting from a house you rent, or your side hustle, as I mentioned, or also even credit card rewards. And make sure your expenses don't overcome your income. You always want to make sure you're making more money than you're spending. If your expenses are higher than your revenue, then that's an eye opener for you that you need to kind of create an action plan and for you to pivot, right? You want to go towards the right track as opposed to staying on those bad spending habits. So the budget planner really outlines that and it shows you, okay, all right, this month was bad. I spent a lot of money here. My action plan is to next month not spend X amount of money on clothes, and that'll help me and that'll cut me back and put me on green. So I've been budgeting since 2016 when I was 20 years old. I came back from Iraq with more money than I thought I would ever have in my bank account. I don't remember exactly what caused me to create the budget planner. At my job, I would use Excel, and maybe I just got it from there where I just started putting my expenses and I created graphs and stuff like that. So at first I wasn't so determined to actually fill it out, but it created kind of those habits, and I made sure that my revenue was always higher than my expenses. And at first I wasn't always meeting that goal. There was months where my expenses would be a lot higher. I wasn't making a lot of money, obviously, in the Marine Corps, but I also had that cushion of extra money that was just sitting in my bank account because I wasn't financially literate and I didn't know what to do with it. But my point is that slowly I began really focusing on that over the years. And again, consistency plays a big part here. The more consistent I got, the better my spending habits got and the better my tracking of revenue got. And as I grew older, lifestyle creep began to happen. So for example, in 2022, I made far more money than I did in 2021. However, I actually saved more money in 2021, meaning my profit for the entire year was higher. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, to be fair. 2022, I had to spend money on repairs for a rental property and my new vehicle that I purchased because my Jeep was falling apart, as well as now in this year, a YouTube studio that is going to impact my expenses for 2024 later on that I get to worry about in December. But it's a good example of how even though in 2022 I made more money, my profit at the end of the year was actually lower than 2021. So expenses could play a big role in how much money you actually have. So budgeting and monitoring will actually show you if you're on track and how big of an impact your expenses have in your personal life. Because think of it this way, the more money, I like to invest in dividend stocks. So the more money I actually profit and the more money I put in my dividend stocks, the more money I end up getting back. Instead of my money kind of just sitting there, it's actually making money through dividends that I get paid. And it's kind of important because the less profit I make, the less money I actually have. Another example is the less money I make, the less profit I have, the less money I have to spend on things like this that I actually enjoy doing, and that's a little bit more fun for me. And lastly, budgeting isn't just about limiting your spending. It's about empowering yourself with financial freedom and peace of mind. By setting clear goals and tracking your expenses and categorizing them, you're able to really control this chaos. The journey to financial stability and success starts with a single step. And that single step is to actually decide to budget. So embrace it and watch your financial life transform for the better. Budgeting is a skill just like any other. And once you master it, it will serve you for life because those same principles that you have in budgeting are going to transcend when you end up making more money, or they're going to help you snowball into a bigger pool of wealth for you. Maybe right now you don't have much, but if you just focus on your spending and focus on keeping that profit higher and your revenue high, you can get in a better area of life. But you really need to focus on your spending if you are having issues with budgeting. If you are perfectly fine and you say, well, I don't really need to worry about my spending, then think of it this way. At least managing and not spending money on stuff you have to will help you allocate money into other sources of revenue that can help you generate more wealth and help you retire earlier. So start today and take control of your finances, and you've got this, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.